The AI can copy the images at will. There's no issue. The AI can copy a style. But the AI cannot, speak about what makes us human being, what makes us appreciate that building, what makes us, that emotion that you had there. The realm of emotion doesn't work with AI. Light is super important for me. Any type of light, in a building, it's a conscious decision by the architect, by the interior designer. And I don't want to change that. Try not to look at images, not only through Instagram and social media. Try to look at images a bit bigger. At least the screen of laptop is better than the mobile phone. The image on the internet, first thing is the meaning is never fixed. It keeps on changing. I will come to the extent to say that there's no meaning to the image once it's put on the internet.
A masterclass that will explore the transformative influence of technology and on architectural photography under the theme Navigating Change, the impact of technology on architectural photography. It is time to acknowledge and honor the brilliant minds who have joined us today to share their invaluable insights and expertise. Moving ahead, I'd like to welcome Fabien Charuau, a French photographer based in Mumbai. He founded Studio Charuau, which specializes in architectural and interior photography across South Asia. Welcome, sir.
So I'm going to sit here because I'm going to go through... Connected? Am I audible? Yeah. So I'm going to go through my website first, just a sort of short introduction to the work that we do at the studio. And I'll get into the lecture after that. So the studio is called Studio Charuau. That's me, Fabien Charuau. I'm a French photographer. I've been in India for almost 15 years now. I think I've come to the point where I consider myself almost like Indian. I have the bit of the two culture. And we are based in Bombay, and the studio, has 3 to 5 workers right now. A bit more sometimes when we take up videos and we do it in the studio. I always wanted to have a team also of people working with me so that I can control the way the editing is done. And, it's a bit easier than having freelancers. In photography, in terms of photography, I started photography with fashion. I'm an ex-fashion photographer. I used to do advertising as well. But I got really bored with that. Also, I understood, I realized I never understood anything about fashion. I didn't understand what they wanted me to do from those photographs. And I've been shooting now architecture and interiors for almost 12 years now. Also, I'm an artist. I'm going to show what I do with art, with photography and art and digital art. Okay, so that's the beginning. Yeah, I'll start that way. I think the most important for you to understand what I want to do with photography, whether it's architecture or interiors, is I have this kind of artistic endeavor or artistic vision that I would like to represent or mimic what I see with my eyes. So you see in none of those photos, it's not highly stylized. When I come home or I come back to the studio after the shoot, I really try to understand what I've seen there, what was my experience of the space, because every space will give you an emotion, And that experience, any space, whether, it's a positive or negative emotion, you're going to keep something with you in your heart from that space. Or even if it's completely neutral also, and that space really bored you, it's still an emotion. And I would like to do with my photography, whether I shoot portraits, whether I shoot architecture or street, to bring back that experience. I don't go for this very highly conceptual photography. There's that pure emotion I would like to bring back there. So in terms of colors also, I try to keep the colors. You'll see, because right now in photography, we're getting kind of away from colors. I don't know why in India, there's less and less colors in what we do, less and less colors also in our photography. For me, color is really, really important. So I try to match what I have seen. I try to be sure that the color that was there in that design or in that building will be the same on the photograph. In terms of lighting, if you see also, we don't bring any lights on our shoot. It's very rare. Unless until I shoot advertising, I can shoot with lights. I can shoot with very difficult lighting condition in studio, etc. but I never really got into it. Also, I used to assist a photographer. I don't know if you know a film called Prabhudo Dasgupta, Indian photographer who never used lights. I mean, shooting black and white on film. So I never really got exposed into that. And I think now I'm finding kind of my language with this way of using photography. And the good thing with that, I'll show you some of the images. Some of the images, for instance, this image was shot, almost like 17 years ago. I mean, when my first digital camera. And somehow, I mean, still finds its place in my portfolio. So there's no huge departure in terms of aesthetics from what I used to do 15, 17 years ago and to what I'm doing now. So at times it was a bit difficult because when I was shooting that, I mean, it's more like a photojournalistic, Steve McCurry kind of way of shooting. I remember at that time, everybody was shooting on medium format. You had that kind of very controlled way of shooting I mean, it was on a medium format film camera. So, I mean, the process was kind of slow. And the image looked a bit more static. I mean, you had that kind of deadpan look, which I never really liked. So it was a bit of a struggle, I mean, to impose my style. But at the end of the day, when I look in retrospect, I mean, with all what I have done before, I kind of understand that. And also, I started to look at images in more, in kind of what I call a perennial way. I don't want my image to disappear. I want them to stay a long time. I want them to be able to, that people can connect with them even after it's 20 years. I find style on photography really, I mean, works when it's in fashion, but can really make some of the photo really dated. And so that's what I tried to do. So I started shooting industrial photography. I love that. I really love my job because, I mean, everybody will say they love their job, I hope. But I really get access to places that if I was not doing photography and I wasn't doing this kind of photography, I'll never get access to. So because I get to shoot, I'm from Mumbai, I get to shoot, I mean, those really lavish, I mean, weird, expensive, penthouses, apartments, and I really get access to that side of India, the side of the money and the power. But at the same time, through my street photography and industrial photography, I get access to the other side of India. And right now, I mean, India is changing so fast. So it's amazing to be able to document, I mean, the two sides of the spectrum because it's quite important. I mean, what happens on the top, but what happens at level at the middle class and middle class and the villages as well. I was saying, I mean, mood is quite important. I don't know if it's going to open. Yeah. So for instance, that's a shoot I did in Goa for El Decor, and El Decor, whenever they send me to Goa, it's always raining, it's always the monsoon. And here, I mean, those Goan home, I mean, during the monsoon, it was raining a lot, are really difficult to shoot. I mean, there's no light at all. And they kind of designed that way, and it's a bit gloom there. But I decided to try to bring back that type of light which was there. I mean, light is super important for me. Any type of light, I mean, in a building, I mean, it's a conscious decision by the architect, by the interior designer. And I don't want to change that. I mean, it's part of the design as well. And somehow, you know, I mean, so I shoot with, I mean, it's going to be HDR because that's the technology we have now. And when you bring back your HDR, you know, in terms of brightness and contrast, and you dial it up to something which works for you, I mean, most of the time it's going to be the light which was in that space. So this kind of inherent beauty to the way the mood and the lighting was there. I mean, I try to bring it back to my images. I shoot advertising for real estate developers. I mean, it's a different thinking and way of understanding photography, but I like that. I like the stress of it. I mean, it's really, really stressful. I shoot a lot of in Ahmedabad. I've shot a lot with Doshi. So that's Premabai. More advertising shots, more monsoon shots also. And so anyway, all of that, I mean, I mean, it's not really the purpose of the class anyway for me to go through my portfolio. Everything is on either on Instagram, but please come on the website. I mean, that's the point of the class. I mean, try not to look at images not only through Instagram and social media. Try to look at images a bit bigger. I mean, at least the screen of laptop is better than the mobile phone. Yeah, so that's what I do. Now, in terms, I'll go to the next part. Slowly, I'm going to edge into what I want to speak about and through the examples of what I've been doing. So I'm an artist also, using images for art. I mean, to try to represent something else. And I do a lot of digital art. And I really like creating through what we call generative art. I don't know if you heard about generative art. It's a bit of branch of a bit unknown branch of digital digital art. So basically, digital art, generative art is you work. You can work on the concept. I mean, you can work on anything, but the idea is to work with an algorithm. The idea is kind of to give away the control that you have on the output, on the artwork, to the algorithm and to the initial condition. So that's going to be mainly algorithmic art. That's what I do here. And I kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that, I mean, my artwork is not fully controlled. I mean, there's a lot of intellectual thinking about what I do with the algorithm and etc. But the output is kind of by fluke. I mean, something happens, something which is beautiful and poetical, and this thing interests me, and something which can be of a higher level of beauty, of a higher level of meaning. So, for instance, I'm not going to go through all of that also, so because it's going to be too long. In those work, I started working with images of kisses. So I've been working a lot about working on trying to reveal my understanding of Indian society. So I've been working a lot also on sexuality in India. So I had projects before which were not too positive and speaking about sexuality in India. And here, I mean, somehow, I mean, it came to me and to my mind. So that's quite old. This project is 2014. So that's going to connect with more millennials when they were young. And there was this kind of rebellion within the millennials saying, you know, I mean, we want to live our sexuality differently. We want to be open about our affection and romanticism. And we're going to document it. We're going to show it. I don't know if you remember the Kiss of Life in Kochi. So there were protests and people, I mean, youngsters walking on the streets. I'm saying, you know, we want to reclaim the public space. And also, I mean, in terms of social media and Facebook, I mean, you had more and more people posting images of people being intimate, whether they are kisses, hugs, etc. And I found it super interesting. So I started working on those images of kisses, and I put them into an algorithm that I had coded on a language called processing. I don't know if you know of this language. It's kind of used also in architecture as well. I mean, it's Java-based language to work on images. And in processing, I found a function which calculates the energy of the pixel. And I really loved it. I mean, once again, it's artistic point of view on the technology, but I found it interesting that, you know, pixels could have an energy and I could reveal the energy of the image. And that's why you need to understand, I mean, my way of looking at images, and I would like you to try to start seeing images the same way I see them. But images, once they go on the internet, I see them having a very organic life, which is completely disconnected from the intent and the imperative of the photographer. They exist on their own, they float on the internet, and the control that we had before as photographers is completely gone. So there's kind of political take on that, which is also in a way, that's the class that I'm going to start, and I'm a bit late. So I mean, you can start arguing for that, using, different, different theories. I'm going to use semiotics. So there's quite a lot of semiotics in my class as well. And start thinking about the meaning of those images. What happens to the meaning of a photograph once it's put on the internet? So this class is really important. I think right now at this juncture, so that's my first class in 6 years, actually. That's why I'm a bit rusty. But I think now it's time to start speaking about images, and photography and documentation, and then also architectural documentation, what we want to do with those images. What they're supposed to represent. And that's really, really important. So I'll start with the class. So I think we're good. Yeah. Am I going too fast? No? Yeah, I'm a bit stressed because I'll tell you why. Because the class is initially a class which is module of 2 hours. And that's 4 hours of class that I have to do in half an hour, which is going to be a bit difficult. And also there are a lot of new concepts for everybody here. But I think it's very important, at least, if you get out of the class and you start looking at images and, not being passive and being in that passive way of ingesting images. That's what we do now. I don't know how many hundreds of images I've seen since this morning, only on Instagram, Reddit, etc., on Facebook a bit. And it's crazy. You need to understand that I'm 50. When I was a kid or I was your age, I was not looking at that many images, and our relationship towards images was completely different. There's been huge paradigm shifts. The first will be the internet, the second will be social media, and the third, which is happening right now, is AI. And we're not speaking about it. It's kind of going through us. And so that's why I would like to stop that passive way of understanding images. It's much more complicated than that. It's more complicated than that because in terms of ideology, in terms of society, in terms of politics, this is really, really impacting the way we live in society also, and also our political views in terms of propaganda. So the lecture has 5 sections. So the 2 first sections, I'm going to be quite quick through it. And the last one, I'll spend more time. The first section is try to make you understand that technologies have really impacted the way we experience images, the way we view images, the way also those images are made also impact. This is kind of a game of hen of the egg. I don't know what started, whether it's the capture technology which changed first or the viewing technology which changed first. But that really changes the way we see images. The second will be, so I wrote an article which was published in 2018 for a book, very academic book, on Bloomsbury, on the network image. So the second part is going to speak about the meaning of the image once it's on the internet, and also the fact that photography has a very weird relationship with reality. It's kind of that holy pact that we have with reality. Whether a photograph is a true representation of reality or not. So I'm going to speak about that. The third part is about social media. So it's now, what's happening now. And the fourth, AI. AI, I don't have much things to say because it's so fast. It's really difficult to understand what's happening. And the last one, I would like to open up to architectural photography. And the importance and the relevance of what we do, architectural photographers in this ecosystem. So I'll start with the first part. So once again, if we had more time, but if you want, perhaps we can find the occasion to, whether, it's through CEPT or, through any institution, to have a longer, interaction, through the lecture. But what I wanted you to understand here is, till the 2000, mid 2000, our interaction with images was created by human beings. I mean, at all steps, you know, I mean, there you had, I mean, before 2005, I mean, I will say 2005, I mean, our only relationship with images will be through printed materials. Whether, I mean, it's going to be books, magazines, that's going to be museums, exhibition, advertising, at all the part, you know, I mean, whether, I mean, through the photographers, the editor, the curator, I mean, you had decisions which were taken by human beings. That curation of images was done at 100% by human beings. Now, I mean, since the digital started, I mean, what I call the digital, but it's going to be the internet, the digital photography, etc. That part of human curation, sorry, has diminished a lot. To the extent that I don't even know that I'm quite sure like 60% of what we see now in terms of photography is not curated by human being. That's going to be algorithm. That's going to be algorithm working with algorithm. I mean, it's getting in a very complex and complicated situation. And this is going to impact the meaning of images, that understanding that we have of images. So I hope, I mean, it's quite obvious, but I think it's quite important to say because it's been gradual. I mean, that shift from human curation to that kind of algorithmic curation. And for most of you, because most of you in your 20s, you kind of were born in the era of the digital. You don't have memories like I have of my interaction with images, which was through the printed medium. So I've used this image, which is super well known from Steve McCurry. And I found it interesting because, I mean, see, to make you understand that difference. So that's an image which was shot in 1984 by Steve McCurry. I would have seen it, I'm quite sure, I don't remember, it would have been when I was 12, I'm 50. So I lived, you know, through those the two times. And 50 is not much, actually. And you imagine, I mean, the amount of change which went through information and the way we understand information. So this image, I'd seen it on the cover of, that was not Nat Geo, that was a French magazine for kids. But the impact that image had for me was huge. I still remember the layout of the cover. I remember me spending really a lot of time in front of this image. I remember me putting that magazines into the bookshelf, taking it away. And I'm quite sure the only interaction I had with this image for almost 3 or 4 years was only this magazine. I mean, the access to images was much more complicated. Not complicated, but it was different. We had less images in front of our eyes. And that interaction, that experience with the images was completely different. I mean, now coming here and coming to, I mean, since 2000, I would say mid 2000s, those images, I'm quite sure this image somehow was a first time being uploaded on the internet. And you need to understand that what we call the network image is this image which kind of start branching out. With the digital, you can copy and paste, you can reproduce the images really, really easily. And that image started spreading through the internet, whether, I mean, it was decided by Steve McCurry or not, or Nat Geo. And you get in situations where, so I mean, you can do an image search with everything, but just for you to understand what I call, and what we call a network image. A network image is this image that I'm seeing here, but all the other images all together. And they are, and they exist. They're all there. I mean, I'm not going through the links, but you imagine that this image is going to be hosted in all those different websites in a different way. So now I can see it in, so let's try. I don't know if it's going to work. So most of the time, I mean, because it's quite a well-known image, so I don't know where I am. Yeah, here. So here it's going to be more or less created by a human being. But then you imagine that image going into Tumblr, into Instagram. I mean, the meaningful creation by the photographer is completely gone. So here, I mean, obviously that will be like the important images from the 20th century. But one sec. but that image exists in all those occurrences, those possibility of seeing that image on the internet. And do you imagine that? So, I mean, I can see it here. I mean, for instance, that's my network image here, part of my lecture. But also, if I go to any website and all of that, you'll have bits of information which are going to come with this image, and which are not really decided by whether the curator or the editor or the photographer. And I think it's very important. I mean, the network image has a lot of paradoxes. And one of the paradox of the network image is that, I mean, you see it, you always see it, I mean, singularly. I mean, there's the singular occurrence of that image. But at the same time, in the back of your head, you know very well that image exists somewhere else on the internet at many places and has different possibility, I mean, almost an infinite way of possibility of permutation of the information around it. And that information, that's why I'm getting back, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, but I'm getting back to the fact that information is not created by human beings. It's an algorithm. And that algorithm has different imperative than the photographer's imperative. I mean, most of the time, I mean, the imperative is commercial. I mean, making us seeing other stuff. And then I'll get into what we call here, sorry, what we call polysemy. So now I'm getting into semiotics. I don't know if you heard about semiotics before. It's the science of science. I mean, trying to understand how science work together. It's a very old discipline, which is linked to linguistic. I mean, it's part of linguistic, and it started at the end of the 19th century with an American called Peirce, and you had a Swiss called Saussure. And you have different school of semiotics also. I'm going to speak more about Roland Barthes, who is a French philosopher from the 50s, 60s. Used to work a lot. I mean, not used to work, but I mean, his thoughts and his philosophy are kind of connected to Derrida. I don't know if you heard about him also, Foucault also. That's what we call a post-structuralism. It's the understanding that meaning is never fixed. I mean, if you look at in terms of ideology, I mean, what they call the wokism, but what we call also postmodernism is basically an offshoot of that philosophy. That meaning is not fixed. I mean, it's ideological. We speak a lot about gender. I mean, all what we have in terms of thinking about gender, I mean, kind of is an offshoot of this type of philosophy. Now, Barthes proposed that images as a sign don't have a fixed meaning. That's what he said. Images is a message without a code. I mean, and you kind of understand that, I mean, as a photographer or somebody who has been using images, an image without a caption or without, I mean, a text, I mean, explaining what's there in the images, the meaning of this image is going to float. It's never going to be fixed into something. As a photographer, you never send an image without the backup of a text. Or it could be the text also within the image. And that's what he called the anchorage of the text. And that anchorage fixed the meaning. I mean, it's a bit more complicated than that, but fix the meaning of the image, the meaning into image into a fixed position. And that's why we need the anchorage of the text. Now you get back to the network image, where you had those images floating on the internet and you have all those permutations of different signs and different bits of information. You understand that meaning now will change. Each time you open your web page, I mean, where the image is, that meaning, in a way, and sometimes it's quite strong, that meaning of the image will shift. And that's the paradox of meaning of the network image. And that's why, I mean, our understanding and viewing of image has changed a lot with digital. I mean, if you see, and whatever happened before, in the 20th century wasn't really, really strong in terms of a shift of meaning, but the internet has really changed everything. So that's what we call polysemy. So that's one of the paradox of the network image. The second thing that I want you to understand, and really, it's kind of obvious, but still, I mean, we need to speak about it, is the fact that when I was a kid and when images were printed, it was kind of instinctive that an image was a representation of something which happened in front of the camera. You had this kind of connection between reality and image. I mean, the photograph. That's what we call, we said that the image is an index of something which happened. The image is the physical trace of something which happened in front of the camera through light. Light hitting the subject, getting through the lens and hitting the film. So that's something which kind of obviously much more complicated than that, but we always took images as a true, full representation of something which exists. Now with the digital, initially, it was not so obvious. And when we shifted from analog to digital, we had a lot of articles, conferences, about photojournalism, and Vinay can speak about it. He knows that very well. He does a lot of photojournalism, but that relationship between image and truth and what we can do and we can't do with the camera and the digital file in photojournalism. And I was really pregnant. I remember, for almost 3 or 4 years, that's all what we used to speak about. Now, with AI, and all of you are in your 20s, that thing is completely gone. And nobody speaks about it. And that's once again why I'm going to give this lecture more and more, because I think it's very important to start thinking about that. I know we are in the era of post-truth, and there's no truth anymore. But still, I think it's quite important, and not being once again passive and just, okay, that's AI. We can change everything, and I keep on flicking through the social media. So 2 things with the image on the internet. First thing is the meaning is never fixed. It keeps on changing. I will come to the extent to say that there's no meaning to the image once it's put on the internet. And second thing, there's an evacuation of that relationship, that weird relationship that we had with reality. So that's super important for you to understand. I think we're doing good in terms of time. So all of that was part of the article. So this lecture is accessible on my website. So at the end of the lecture, I'm going to give you the link to the website. Also, I'm going to put, tomorrow when I get back to the studio, I'm going to put also, if you're interested, and I'll be quite happy if you start reading also, you don't stop only at this lecture, but you start reading about all the studies which have been done on images, on photography. It's really, really important, whether you are a photographer or part of the architecture field. It's really, really important to start reading all of that. So the article also is there. There's an article which really, because I don't come from academia. And most of the photographers are not from academia. It took me 6 months to write it. That was really, really, painful for me to get into that. Because you need to start shifting, the way because as a photographer, it's kind of obvious. The decision that we take are kind of obvious. And rethinking the way I understood photography was really, really difficult for me. But it really impacted me, impacted my practice as a photographer, as an artist, but also impacted the way I see reality. The way I am as a human being. Politically also, it really changed a lot of things for me in terms of politics. So that's the first part. Cool. So the second part, which I'm going to go, so that's social media. Social media is, so that's a second paradigm. I'm kind of listing 3 big paradigm shift for photography right now and digital photography. The first one will be the internet. The second one will be social media. And the third one will be AI. So and you see, I mean, the pace of those changes is getting faster and faster. I mean, from social media to AI, we just had I count that as 4 years. For me, the shift in paradigm for social media will happen post-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, I mean, most of us, I mean, depends of the generation, but most of us were accessing information through the website and going from one link to the other. I mean, you had this kind of haphazard navigation through the internet, from one hyperlink to the other hyperlink. You had this kind of element of serendipity. You never know what you will get at the end of your research. In a way, that was not very efficient, but at the same time, that was a good tool for learning. That was a good tool to have a critical point of view also on events, on politics, on what's happening in the world. And since the pandemic, I think the shift will happen after the pandemic. More and more of the information that we access and we ingest will be mediated by the social media. I'm quite sure there will be studies on, the time that we spend on social media or the time that we spend like we do right now in front of a computer screen. But there's a huge shift, and the quantity of information that we ingest through social media it's crazy. It's really doesn't make sense anymore anyway. And in a way, in the lecture, if I had more time, I will start to speak about complexity and complex systems, about self-organization and emergence. But unfortunately, it won't happen. But I see social media are kind of, once again, they came about in a very organic way. I mean, there was a need for a certain organization of information on the internet. And those structures came in, if you look at Instagram, initially there was 4 photographers. For them to exchange photography, and it was kind of small. And somehow the function of that application went into a different direction and became much more commercial. So all of that, nobody decided that I'm going to make a perfect application for people to look at images on social media. It came about in a very organic way. And I will qualify them, I will speak about them as funnels. They work for us as funnel, and they kind of funnel or drive the information to our eyes. And they have a certain structure. They in a way, you could, anyway, I don't have the time, but you can see that they have a certain structure and a certain economy in a way for us to see those images. They're shaped by what I call a primary force. One is they're going to make sure that the images that you're going to look at, are formatted for the mobile phone, because, most of the images that you look at right now will be through a mobile phone. At the same time, also, they have a very strong and very huge commercial imperative. They want you to spend the maximum time on the application. They don't want you to go somewhere else. And they want you also to ingest the maximum information. We are right now in the era of quantity versus quality. In a way, I'm not saying, what we do right now, in photography is bad. Actually, that's the opposite. Whatever, the images that we produce right now are very well executed. I see the youngsters, the new generation, Gen Z, millennials, when they take the camera, they do amazing images. But there's something missing, in terms of meaning. That's what I call quantity. It's more, it's kind of feels like it's factory made, and quality is kind of has deserted the social media. So somehow I started thinking about it, and 6 months ago I started. Because you really look at a lot of images, and also I started looking at images a bit differently, and I started seeing that all those images, there's a certain aesthetic coming out of it. Now, if you look, I'm going to get back a bit earlier in the lecture. But what we had in the 90s, there was a huge change in the way images were shown. In terms of technology, we could print much bigger. So you had lambda printing, you had the beginning of inkjet, also printing also, and the size of the output of the prints were much bigger. I mean, that's what we call museum prints. You'll see artists, photographers starting, I mean, shelling out. I mean, you look at, that's Gorski here. I mean, the prints were huge with a lot of details. So at the same time, photographers started using different type of cameras, I mean, to get that quantity of details. So we started shooting a lot with medium format, so that there's much more of those details in the photos. Medium format also changed the way we were shooting because they're quite heavy. I mean, you have your sheet there, or even if you have your Mamiya, I remember, I mean, it was such a huge camera, you had to shoot on the tripod. So, I mean, slowing down the way you were shooting, the way people were posing also, I mean, the subject matter. So all of that, you know, I mean, it's in circle. I mean, what influenced the other one, I don't know. But there's a certain aesthetic which came because of that shift and that change in technology. Right now, we have a different, where was I? Here. Because of the way those images are shown on the mobile, and there are very few small pixels. I mean, whatever it is, I mean, even if you have Retina display on, and even if you see it on the iPad, I mean, it's still quite small. And that impacted also the way people started shooting. And once again, I mean, it's not something which, I mean, one guy woke up in the morning thinking, yeah, I'm going to make the ideal image for Instagram. It's not like that. I mean, it's organic. I mean, moreover, I mean, the medium, social media, encourage this kind of very Darwinian evolution of photography. I mean, it's all about like and virality. I mean, if an image doesn't work in terms of aesthetic from the beginning, it's going to get discarded from the beginning. And the image which works for the audience and the mobile phone and the app are going to be the one which stays on the top. And then obviously, I mean, you see more of those images, you're going to start working and shooting in that direction. And somehow you get a convergence of aesthetics. And they make sense. In a way, they make sense. So I kind of listed, and I'm quite sure you might, because all of that is quite new also for me. I mean, that lecture, I mean, it's like 4 months right now in my head. And things are changing so fast. So you might also have things to add to what I say. But I kind of listed, I mean, we're getting into very simplified compositions. For instance, so there's a photographer I really like called Willy Rollins, American photographer working in France. So, I mean, you have those compositions. I don't know if you remember, but those images from the 60s, I mean, Henri Cartier-Bresson, you had, you know, the way of looking at the image, I mean, Ragurai, and the way of looking at images, the way entering the image, you know, the photographer will, I mean, that's what Binet does very well in the Panorama series also, you know, I mean, going from one side to the image, and the photographer is a master of guiding the gaze of the viewer. I put those images on Instagram. They don't look good. I mean, they look very, very bad. And that's very sad. I mean, because those images have a huge importance for photography, and they don't find a place with this new media. So we're getting into simplify compositions. So that's a big thing for me, because as I was saying, for me, colors are very important. We're reducing the number of colors in our images. That's through color grading. And I think we are really fumbling through that. I mean, I don't like what's happening now. I mean, that reduction of colors and everything is starting to look the same. Interiors images, they all have that kind of yellow tinge now. I mean, in France, I was in France, for Christmas, and I picked up Eddie, and it's supposed to be the best interior designer in Paris, blah, blah, blah. Everything looks the same. Everything is shot the same way. Everything the same use. It's all going to be maroons, beige, etc. So there's a reduction of those, color palette. And yeah, that's why I was saying also, I think we're fumbling through that. I mean, if you remember, beginning of 2000, that was the beginning of, with Matrix, of color grading in films. Matrix was well done. But I'd seen on Netflix House, and it's you can't watch it. It's so, that orange and teal grading where everything is either yellow or blue. I mean, you can't watch it. And I think we are in that stage also with the photography that we give and put on Instagram. We decrease the amount of details also on the images, obviously, because details, I mean, the social media will make sure that you have a frictionless experience with the images. You're going to go from a bit of information to the next. And so if you have too much details and you're going to start spending too much time on one image, that doesn't work. You're not going to be rewarded for that. So we start eliminating the details. What I see also is recurring patterns. We see very often the same patterns. Okay, interior photography is, we don't have, it's a home. You have corner shots, one-point perspective. We don't have that many, that variety of angles. But more and more, I'm finding those recurring patterns in photography and in interior photography, architectural photography. And in a way, it makes sense also because it's easier to look at. You see, I've seen that type of image before. Cool, I like it. I'll go to the next. So that's what's happening. And one thing which I've seen since 6 months now is this increase. I will call that kind of rigidity of the image. I don't know how you'll see what I see, but this increased sense of perspective. It's as if, we have put those images on steroid, and the foreground and the background and whatever happens, all those planes in photography are overhangs. So you do that through Photoshop, but you're going to do that also through lighting. Now I see a lot of photographers using very strong lights in interiors, and you have that you feel like you can touch it and you know what's in front and what's in the back. So, the list is, it's a working list. I'm quite sure there might be more to that. And I'll come, okay, that didn't load, but I come to, the paradox of what's happening now. Because at the same time as we looking at images smaller and smaller, at the same time, we have cameras which are bigger and bigger with bigger sensors. We can really capture, I was speaking about human sight. Human sight is quite developed. We can see from the biggest highlights, the strongest highlights to the darkest shadow. It's quite well engineered by the evolution. 10, 15 years ago, I used to shoot on TP, on transparency. You had to get your exposure right at that time. If you were not right, your highlights will completely blow up. Your shadows will get completely dark. Right now with the cameras, it's amazing what we can do. We get huge sensors. This camera, I don't know. That's, I think 100 megapixel. Or I'm not too technical anyway, but you have that technology. And in a way, all what we see and show now as photographer, even if you go for exhibition or if you go for prints, most of the time those images are going to be seen through the mediation of the screen of a mobile phone. I find it very, very weird and a bit sad. So I come to that, getting to architectural photography or interiors, so just me flicking through my Instagram. But what's the point of it? All those images start to look the same. I can't differentiate one design, one home from the other. It's as if we're slapping a formula on those images. They work. The client is happy because he gets that many likes and it's going to be in AD or L decor or whatsoever or design. But what's really the point of it? Because all those images are starting to really look the same. Anyway, you have maximum 10 seconds or 15 seconds of interaction with the images. In a way, also, we are demanded as photographers to have those 3 images, to represent a project, which is, doesn't make sense. Project is much more complicated than that. If you see an interior project or architectural project, it's minimum 6 months, but very often 1.5 years or 3 years of work. There's so many decisions there. Which are completely evacuated if you really work with only 3 images. And also, I have something, I was speaking about the experience of being in the space. I don't know. I look at those images and I really don't understand what it's going to be in that space. What's the experience of those people who are going to live there or are going to use that building. I mean, none of that is there. So, I mean, I'm just, and that's my point here, which is against, in terms of commercial, it's not very good for us photographers. But really, what's the point to commission photographers to go in spaces if what they're going to give you is going to be something which is very generic and nobody is going to look at it and nobody is going to remember. I mean, right now we're coming to the, I'm very good. I have a very good eye. I mean, I've seen a lot of images. I have no memory of what I've seen this morning. I mean, most of you will be like that. So what's the point really to go that direction? Moreover, right now, because those images are so similar to each other's, we're getting into one more paradigm shift, which is the AI, which is, I mean, it's 1.5 years. I mean, Midjourney started what? I mean, people started understanding Midjourney 1 year ago. And now, I mean, Midjourney is shit. I mean, you have much better generative AI for images. Right now, I have time where I don't know if it's generated by an AI or not. You know, I do my image search. You know, I put an image and I put it on Google image search or any of those things. And I start looking at these images. And if they are on the internet before 2023, then yeah, then I won't doubt the authenticity of that image. And so yeah, I mean, it's come so quickly that I'm quite sure most of us, I mean, perhaps because we are from humanities and we work with images, but it's going to go above the head of most of the people. I mean, that revolution of AI, it's kind of a transparent revolution, and most people will be like, yeah, I mean, there's more images. And anyway, I'm just realizing that, I mean, it's not very important if the image is true or not anymore. I mean, you go on Instagram, it's just that, you know, that micro burst of, you know, dopamine that you get each time. That's why you go there. I mean, that's quite sad. I mean, people rather go for that than spending more time with the images and the satisfaction of understanding and looking at a good image. I mean, it's much more rewarding than that small, I mean, kicks that you get through social media. Also, I mean, that's going to be huge. I mean, I don't know how many photographers are here, but that's going to be huge change in our profession. No, I mean, I hope now you understand the relationship between image and photography and reality. But there's certain chunk of photography which are not supposed to show reality, like fashion photography, car photography, product photography. I'm quite sure the list is quite long. I mean, you see what people do with Photoshop. I mean, you bring those images into a different world, which is completely imaginative. You never needed that relationship in reality. So now, I mean, if you're a fashion photographer, I mean, because they're super expensive, those campaigns, and you go for an ad campaign, I mean, you can go from 40 lakh to 1 crore, the ad campaigns. You get the models, you get the location, you get the props, you get the stylist, vanity van, and all of that. I mean, right now, I'm quite sure, I mean, in 1 year, I mean, a lot of the campaigns will be done on AI with one guy behind the computer. I'm quite sure it's going to be possible because now you can do consistent characters with AI. I'm quite sure. So I know that at least 2 years ago, but that was through 3D. So I'm quite sure on AI you can do. You can slap, you know, you can wrap the fabric on the model as well. It's going to be like that very fast. So what's the point? I mean, and moreover, I mean, since the pandemic, I see a lot of people getting into photography. A lot of people, because the access to photography is much easier also. But what they're going to do, I mean, what's going to happen? And for us, I mean, shooting architecture and in interiors, I mean, we are commissioned by somebody, by our client, to show that the place exists. I mean, we commission. So I don't think it's going to impact us too much in terms of the way we understand our photography. But all the guys who are in fashion, all the guys who are in car photography and product photography, they're going to join what we do. I mean, that's the only kind of last bastion of photography which is going to stay. So it's going to be fast. It's going to be really brutal. It's I have no clue. And that's one of the changes with, I mean, I'm speaking about images, but also, I mean, text. I mean, if you look at Instagram, they're going to say that, I mean, 70% of social media, I mean, the content that you're going to see on social media, I mean, in 6 months are going to, or 6 months or 1 year, are going to be created by generative AI. I mean, it's not only photo, it's going to be text, it's going to be sound, it's going to be music, it's going to be even the influencers. You can create an influencer, you can create a stream of, you know, a thread of on Instagram super easily. So, and also there's that kind of destruction of the trust that we had with photography. We won't trust images anymore. Something else, I mean, will happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but we can't trust that. Also, what I wanted to say, I mean, in terms of the profession, also we are photographer. So it's kind of that Uberization of photography, which is happening now. We're interchangeable. I mean, it's not very important what we do now. It's not important who we are. I mean, who we are is more important than what we do as photographer. Not the social media is asking us to become influencers. And you need to kind of create that kind of buzz around your images, on and on. The images to be online and I mean to be seen. I mean your thread. I mean the images that you post need for them to be seen. You need to post 3 or 4 times, or I don't know. There's some numbers about that. You need to have 1 or 2 stories at least per day, etc. So we are supposed to become influencers, but the influencers shelf life is 6 months, 1 year maximum, which is really, really sad because photography is, I mean, for me, it's like more than 20 years of my life. So, I mean, I cannot be replaced so easily. So I think it's time to start thinking about what's happening and start thinking about different avenues, different ways of showing photography. So the lecture is super open-ended. I mean, it belongs to you also. I mean, that reflection belongs to you as well. I mean, for me, I mean, I have certain thread of thinking. You know, I started with the lecture saying that I want to show through photography what I have seen in my eye. And one thing that AI cannot copy, cannot, the AI is not efficient for that, is to speak about the human experience, that subjective experience of being yourself. And when it comes to architecture, that subjective experience of being in a building, that the AI cannot do. The AI can copy the images at will. There's no issue. The AI can copy a style. But the AI cannot, I mean, speak about what makes us human being, what makes us appreciate that building, what makes us, you know, I mean, that emotion that you had there. The realm of emotion doesn't work with AI. And I think we need to go back in that direction. So I don't know how, but at the same time, you look at technologies. I mean, technologies are, I mean, we're copying the human side quite easily. We can even go further than that. We could have much more immersive way of looking at images. I mean, 3D could be one way. I mean, we have the Apple Vision Pro now. So, I mean, we could look at, instead of having an image like that, 120 degree, 360 degree to that, sound could be incorporated. But even what I'm doing right now, I mean, what I did with this lecture, you know, I mean, putting the lecture online and link to my website is because I want you also to start going on my website and start looking at the images a bit bigger than it will have been on the Instagram. So, I mean, there should be some strategies. Things could happen. I don't know, poetry, literature mixed with architecture, spending more time. I know what I'm going to do now this year. I'm going to take less assignments. I'm charging more, but I'm going to get less assignments, and I want to spend more time with the projects. I'm tired of having my clients calling me on weekends saying, where are my images and all of that. I spend time with the images. I try to get something meaningful out of the assignments, whatever it is. I try to get in that zone. Yeah. And I did it in 1 hour. Cool. So yeah, so that's the QR code. If you want to scan it, or you go to website, the link is not on the website because I didn't put it that way. But if you want to get access to that, I'm going to post a lot of PDF also, of articles, books also. So start reading, start getting informed on that. And I hope I change your way of looking at images. Also, one thing, I mean, I was speaking about architectural photography. And sorry, I mean, I missed the most important also, but about legacy. I mean, this is the theme of Elev8, and why I thought, I could speak about that through that cycle of lecture. Is legacy also. It's important to have a perennial documentation of buildings. It's super important to have those images. I mean, I see most of the images which don't represent reality and they kind of generic. They're not going to age well. And I think it's very important to have those images. And we have a long tradition as architectural photographers of documented spaces. I mean, now if you see, spaces, they only access in a lot of buildings. I mean, you had Rajesh Advani, where he has a book on build. But a lot of buildings have been destroyed, and I mean, you can't get, or perhaps, because commercially you can't get access to those images, spaces. Images, photographs are what stays. And right now, I don't think we are in a correct space where, those images that we produce are going to disappear, and they are not perennial documentation of spaces. And I think it's very important. Thank you.